Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is Beyond LTL and Truckload, the Expedite All Approach to Smaller Truck Solutions with my friend Mike Ernst. How's it going, Mike?
It's going great, Joe. How you doing today?
Doing great. So, Mike, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Sure. So my name is Mike Ernst. I'm the president of Expedite All. So Expedite All is North America's leading provider of small vehicle solutions. We've built a network of 10,000 vehicles that cover all of North America. The vehicle types that we use are the sprinters or the cargo vans, the box trucks and straight trucks. They're all commercial vehicles, but the areas we cover are cross-border Canada, the lower 48, cross-border Mexico, as well as intra-Mexico. But we play in the space of small vehicle solutions. So whether you're looking for the fastest door-to-door ground solution possible, or you're just looking for that safety and security of a dedicated vehicle solution for those smaller shipment sizes, that's really the space we play in, Joe.
Yeah, we had a long conversation before we hit the record button about this space, and that's where we came up with the title Beyond LTL and Truckload. And I've always heard this comment: the innovation happens between the boulders. Truckload is a big boulder. LTL is a pretty big boulder, not quite as big as truckload. And those are critically important modes to us. But as e-commerce developed, as we hit COVID, we started seeing just little gaps. And you're an LTL guy. We'll get into that in a minute. But we saw little places where we said, God, we need something else. And just like like magic, this small trucks emerged. And one more time on the sizes you guys use.
So the three different vehicle types we have are the sprinter or the cargo vans. They're going to hold about 3 pallets. Some can hold 4, but kind of the guidance we give our customers up to 3 pallets and up to 3,000 pounds worth of cargo weight. Obviously, they're not dock high, so you'd have to load them from the ground. The second vehicle type we have is a box truck. So the box trucks can hold up to 6 pallets worth of freight. They'll still hover around 3,500 to 4,000 pounds worth of cargo weight. They too are not dock high, but they do have the wheel risers or the ramps that can get the rear end of the truck up to the dock so that the forklift can set freight on, and then the driver would pallet jack it up towards the nose of the trailer and secure everything. And then the third vehicle type is those 26-foot straight trucks. They're obviously going to be dock high. They all have lift gates. You can drive the forklift in them, and they'll hold up to about 10,000 pounds worth of cargo.
Yeah, we've had a big change in our needs for our supply chains. We're moving inventory closer to the consumer, which would have been in the past just a task for LTL. And you've been in this business for a long time. We always had, I don't know, we sometimes called them couriers or something else. There was this other third option that you guys now provide, but it wasn't professional like it is now. I always say it was more of a local service that you knew about. It wasn't necessarily a global, it wasn't a solution that you could deploy in all of North America.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, Joe, when you think about what we've coined as STL, small truckload, because really that's what it is. You're getting a full truckload type move, that exclusive dedicated unit just on a smaller unit. But I think as we were kind of talking earlier, it really falls in that space between LTL and full truckload, right? Each mode has its proper application, and both are good modes of transportation. But, if you're thinking about product that an LTL network, let's talk about that because I spent a lot of time in the old LTL world. But there's elevated risk of loss or damage because of the human interaction. There's a lot of handlings. Things can go wrong. They can get misplaced. They can accidentally get dropped or forked. So the LTL has a little bit of uncertainty with risk of loss and damage. The delivery times aren't as critical. They're more of an estimate. Again, not that that's bad, but if you're looking for something that's time sensitive, it's probably not the right fit. You have a lot of lack of control in an LTL system. Again,
right.
You have a network it's got to run through. And then again, we kind of talked about the increased handlings and all the things that can happen. Well, good and bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just a different space. And then you think about full truckload for smaller shipment sizes. if you're going to pay for that full trailer, it's going to be a higher cost, an inefficient use of that trailer space if you want it to be dedicated. If you are getting an inexpensive price, then like we talked earlier, it's probably for one of two reasons. Either a full truckload's got a deadhead and they've got to go back empty, so they'll take the freight, or they're going to consolidate it, which if that's something you don't want, it's not the right fit for that shipment. But the STL really falls in between. It's about right sizing, your equipment to the shipment size so that it's more cost effective. Obviously, we talked about these vehicles that Expedite All offers up to our customers. They're exclusive use, so you don't have to worry about the handlings. You don't have to worry about any human intervention. There's only two touches: the customer loading the freight and the end user unloading it. They're also a dedicated vehicle that's going to go door to door, so it's your fastest ground solution. So all good things. It again is kind of that space when LTL and the handlings or the uncertain delivery timelines or the risk isn't something you're looking for, but you've got a smaller shipment, so you really don't want to have to pay for a full 53-footer. You can get a smaller, more economical solution. And then with us, you even get the GPS track and trace, so you know in real time where it's at. So we're having a lot of fun in this space, Joe. We really are.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We didn't even touch on it yet, but we will. The name of the company is Expedite All. So obviously you do expediting. And I think the difference here is, I think anybody who's in the logistics space says, I've said this, I want an expedited vehicle. I don't want to pay expedited price. So I think that's changed over the last decade. Am I right to say that?
I think so. Even our name, people first think of that expedite, that high cost. And really, we've got a unique model because of how large our network is. As we were talking earlier, Expedite All has 10,000 vehicles in our network. So we have a lot of options. Our TMS identifies what vehicles can make a move that are in our closed loop network of drivers. We can talk about what that means a little bit later, but nonetheless, it identifies the best price as well. So I think we're a lot more cost effective than what people think just because of the capacity we have and the options. Joe, our closest competitor with assets probably has about 14 to 1,600 vehicles. So you can imagine when they're trying to price a vehicle, they've got a smaller quantity to choose from, so they probably have to price it a little higher. We're very competitive in our space, but even past that, some of the things we were talking about as far as usages, it's a lot more than just expedite. It's really people either looking for that fastest ground service or somebody looking for, the safety, the security, the no-touch solution because of the dedicated vehicle. And then it becomes a very economical solution when you're looking at something compared to a full truckload.
Yeah. And the world has just changed. And again, I really do think that innovation happens between the boulders. This is the innovation we needed, and we'll talk more about it in a minute. But tell us a little bit about you, Mike. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the juggernaut that is Expedite All.
Sure. Where do I start? Okay, so where was I born? I was actually born in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So I'm an old Pennsylvania country boy. I grew up hunting and fishing. We moved around a lot in the Northeast. My dad worked for a natural gas company, and he was one of those Cinderella stories that started out the ground floor and worked his way up. So we moved around quite a bit in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Maryland. I've also lived in Michigan, North Carolina, Missouri now. So moved around a little bit, but born in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, actually in Gettysburg Hospital. So for anybody listening, if you ever want a long weekend and you love history, go back and visit Gettysburg to see the battlefields and things like that. Absolutely amazing. It's a good time. So as far as career, 25-year freight guy. Spent about 23 years of that with a prior employer. You may know of them. At the end, they were known as Yellow, but I actually started with the Roadway brand up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and had a good career as Yellow had bought Roadway. We transitioned into YRC Freight, and then towards the end, we went back to the Yellow name, but had a great career there. Loved the organization, loved the company. It was unfortunate what happened, but I was blessed to come on at Expedite All. Really enjoying the last couple of years with them. But yeah, as far as career highlights, I guess number of different opportunities with my prior organization. Ended my career as the vice president of line haul and central dispatch at Yellow. So I oversaw the line haul operation for all four of our brands. At that time, we had obviously Yellow, Redaway, Holland, and New Penn. And since then, joined Expedite All again almost 2 years ago. And they originally brought me in as the chief operations officer. Spent about a year doing that. And then end of last year, they asked me to take over as the president for Expedite All. So really enjoying it. But honestly, Joe, I will tell you, the biggest highlight I have, just celebrated my 22nd wedding anniversary with my wife last Saturday. So God love her. She has put up with me for 25 years in total. But we just celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary on Saturday. We've got two beautiful children, two girls, one in college and one's going to be a senior this year. So honestly, that is probably the highlight of my life is my family. God bless them.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, you married a nice Michigan girl, so how could you go wrong?
I did.
So you're an LTL guy through and through. And so you know the advantages, and there definitely is some advantages. And I will say, there was always this knock against LTL. They've gotten much better at certain things. It used to be, if I remember I was in Laredo and I said, this shipment is going from Laredo to Minnesota. How many times is it going to change trucks? How many times is it going to be touched? And I think 15 years ago, it would have been like, 4 times, right? Now they're like, we got this cab and it's going to do pretty well. So they've gotten really good. But we learned during COVID, it isn't perfect for everything. I've talked to a number of people during COVID where the LTL companies became overwhelmed and they said, we can't work with you on this lane for the next 3 weeks. So people had to find alternatives. And I think this is one of the reasons companies like Expedite All have done so well. It fit a niche. And then I will say this, I worked in LTL myself, you've forgotten more than I know about it, but there was always customers who would come and say, Joe, this absolutely positively can't be stacked upon. And then you go, yeah, okay, I guess we can get one of those cardboard cones that absolutely won't be stacked upon. And then when you go to the LTL terminal, you see them all crushed. I mean, and I would, after a while, started saying, their business is to fill their truck. This is not an easy business. And when you say you can't stack, you've taken money out of their pocket. So they're going to ask for more money sometimes, or they're going to stack on it. And if you're talking about food or pharma or some of the other stuff that you guys move, sometimes that's just, there's a lot of things that are electronics. You just say, I can't have anybody stack upon it. So LTL isn't a perfect fit for everybody. And I mean, again, I'm a big proponent of that space. Same with truckload. I told you this before we hit the record button, that I know a friend of mine told me that McDonald's, a location, would receive one pallet in a 53-foot reefer because it needed to be refrigerated, and they delivered one pallet. So first off, you've jammed up their parking lot with a big truck. and secondly, what an enormous waste of money and emissions, and it's the wrong fit for that shipment. So much better if I can go to a company like Expedite All. Please elaborate.
Absolutely. So let's start with the LTL side. To your point, every mode of transportation out there has its proper fit. So when you think about LTL, on average, there's going to be about 30 customers consolidated on one schedule. To your point, it's a whole relay race with the networks they set up, right? So it's going to get picked up by one driver, taken back to a terminal, transferred onto another trailer, taken probably to a break bulk or a distribution center, deconsolidated, reconsolidated, put onto another trailer, sent to final destination, unloaded and delivered. So you're going to get 4 to 5 touches on average in an LTL system. So when you're talking about something that's sensitive to damage, or something that maybe is a unique product, a one of a kind type of thing, you do one of two things. You either put it on there and take the risk, or you spend a heck of a lot of money invested in packaging just to try to protect that through an LTL network. And what's going to happen? Where we can come in is, again, as you said, we right size that vehicle to that shipment size and have a door to door no touch. Now, talking about the temperature controlled, right now, outside of the small vehicle solutions that we provide, you're really down to two options. You've got the full truckload that you're going to pay for a 53-foot or a 48-foot trailer to keep that temperature controlled for one pallet. Extremely inefficient and expensive for that one product. The other offering that's kind of come to play over the last few years is refrigerated LTL, but heard a lot of inconsistencies about it, right?
They got to open the door 30 times before they get to your place.
Exactly. So, there's some inconsistencies there, and we really solve that problem for people. Again, we can handle anything from a small envelope up to 14 pallets on the vehicle types that we have. But the advantage you get is you tell us what temperature parameters you need to stay within, and it's only your product on there. So again, you control that temperature so you keep the product fresh and you don't spoil it, and you get the door-to-door direct service and exclusive use of a truck that's actually right sized to your shipment size. No sense paying for that 53-foot refrigerated unit when you could get it at a fifth of the cost on a Sprinter van for one pallet, right?
Right. And it's an interesting thing. We've changed the way we move freight. Freight is moving closer and closer to the end customer. When somebody says, I need to do same day, next day, it might mean I need to bring a pallet or two to a big city. So I might have to say, I have to drive into Kansas City or to Chicago or wherever. I can take a big truck and drop off 2 pallets there, or I can take a van to get to that location. Regardless, I need that inventory closer to the consumer. So I think we're going to look for options like this. It just makes sense. And again, it's this whole industry just seemed to grow up in my mind since COVID. It's always been there. Again, I was an LTL guy. I was at a brokerage, and we every once in a while would move an LTL shipment in an Expedite vehicle. But it was always kind of like, hey, can we get a real price rather than the Expedite price? And you guys are doing that. I think that it was before something very weird and off the beaten track. Now it's grown up. And do you guys call yourself middle mile, final mile? Is that kind of what you guys would specialize in, or do you do the whole? I guess you would do first mile too in some cases.
We can do it all, Joe. When you think about our average length of haul right now, it's about 660 miles. So
that's shocked me when you told me that.
We're doing coast to coast. I mean, we could pick something up in Boston and run it down to LA and go coast to coast, or we could pick something up in Detroit and deliver it in Pontiac, or vice versa. So again, our average length of haul is about 660 miles. Most of the freight that we're handling is going to go business to business. So, it could be to a manufacturing facility, could be to a retail store, could be to a distribution center. It's really business to business. We can do the home deliveries and things like that, but it's a smaller portion of our business. We do a lot of first and final mile to try to get things into airports or out of airports for the final leg on things that are being imported into the country or exported. So yeah, we do a little bit of everything, but at the end of the day, to your point, that the market's really changing, right? So you think about the Amazon effect. Everybody can pick up their phone, order something, and it's on their doorstep, this afternoon or tomorrow, or worst case scenario, 2 days from now. So everybody wants that faster speed and delivery. The other thing is the market is changing as far as the inventory, right? People aren't stacking up 3, 4, 5, 6 months worth of inventory anymore because, things change so rapidly, and they don't want that large inventory that they put the upfront capital to purchase and warehouse when all of a sudden 30 days from now, 60 days from now, something changes and that product becomes obsolete. So people are maintaining leaner inventories. They're getting their suppliers closer. And again, we can help with all those things again by right sizing the equipment.
Yep. One other thing I want to talk to you about, it wouldn't be my podcast if we didn't talk about some of the cargo theft and the freight fraud that we've had in our industry. And, right now, Mike, if you and I were a shipper and we were in charge of a location, it would be the conversation I imagine we would start every day with. I mean, it's a big concern. And certain areas are more difficult than others, but the kind of stuff that you guys are delivering, I know you deliver food and pharma and stuff like that. The bar is a little higher for moving that stuff, for one, and they're going to want to know that you have the security. So can I get that security working with smaller trucking companies or the small truck networks like yours?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just talk about fraud and theft in general. I mean, post COVID, it has run rampant in the logistics industry. It's really scary for customers because, no matter how they're trying to procure somebody to move that freight, really a risk until they get to know them. Then you've got to spend a lot of time trying to vet to make sure that the driver, the equipment, the insurance is all legitimate, and you're not going to have somebody steal, $500,000 worth of electronics or pharmaceutical goods, things like that. So it is scary. We have a lot of conversation with our partners and our customers about that. Where we come into play is really how we built our network. We really started by consulting owner operators and small fleets on how to do everything back office. So what does that mean? Hiring, training, vetting, regulatory compliance, insurance, the applications there, making sure you've got everything you need, your ducks are in a row. And then we add on our tech stack that every one of these vehicles is connected to, giving us GPS track and trace on every single one of them. The nice part about Expedite All, when you book a vehicle with us, you don't have to worry about whether it's a legitimate provider, whether it's a good vehicle, or whether it's a bad actor in the space that's going to steal your load, steal your customers, steal your revenues. We're guaranteeing that. We've already done the homework. So instead of going to, a load board and then having to do it yourself, especially with the smallest vehicle, those sprinters and cargo vans, which, they don't have to have a DOT number or an MC number. So how do you even vet them? We bring to market a solution that solves all of that. At the click of a button, we tell you whether we can or can't make that move. We give you a vehicle and it's a safe piece of equipment to move your freight. So it's a lot of our partners are really nervous about all the fraud and theft. And it's a topic of just about every conversation, every association. You think about the numbers that TIA and some of the other associations have put out. It's staggering. And what's going on out there.
Yeah, and it's interesting. During COVID, we needed the gig economy, and it stepped up, and they did a lot of the home deliveries, for better and for worse. So we had a lot of mom and pop solutions, which might have been okay for the moment, right? You want to just something delivered, but I think it needed to grow up to work with real companies, because if I'm a manufacturer, I don't want to work with a local solution. I want to work with somebody who has, again, done the vetting, has the technology that allows them to work with me. And if that guy who I was working with, the driver, moves on, I got another one right away. We ran into this across the board, because I think the gig economy, again, the guy might show up. Who knows where he came from? If he was vetted on an app that day and approved, do you really want to work with him? Well, I know it takes a little longer on some of those, but it's not, to my way of thinking, a robust solution. And also, I don't want somebody showing up potentially with a face tattoo or a look that is going to turn off my customer. So I want somebody in the middle vetting those companies.
Yeah, I agree. And Joe, the small fleets, some of the owner operators, that are connected with business, that they all have their space. But to your point, there's a little more risk there, right? Do they go out of business tomorrow? Do they have the capacity to cover your needs? I think that's where we help our partners. Again, with 10,000 vehicles, we have a lot of vehicle solutions that we can offer. We're all over North America. We talked a little bit about the vetting, so you don't have to worry about the risk and the fraud that's taking place and the uncertainty. So, again, I never want to knock anybody, because they all have their place. But For big business that has multiple locations, high volume, we really become that answer to the test that helps them solve those problems with a one-stop shop.
Yep, and that's a difficult question to ask. So I'll try and parse my words a little bit. So if I'm working with a big trucking company, the CDL guys, they are bound by the hours of service, for better or for worse, and sometimes nobody wants to put drivers in an unsafe place, or the people who are on the roads, our families. But I've heard from a number of drivers, I've heard from a lot of the researchers that the hours of service doesn't necessarily save lives, but we're bound to it. That guy might have been sitting around waiting to get loaded for half a day, and now he can't drive very far. You don't have the same constraints with your type of vehicle. They can drive them a little longer if they need to, or again, they have the flexibility to do what they think is right in terms of their rest. And I think that gives you more flexibility in the delivery.
It does, and I want to be careful, how we say this, because at Expedite
exactly.
we take safety very seriously. It's one of the no trade-off items we have with the drivers within our network. But you're absolutely right. Outside of the freight trucks, the box trucks and sprinters, they're not regulated by the FMCSA. They're not held to the hours of service laws, and they don't have to run under the ELDs. So there is a little bit more flexibility. Now, what I try to explain to people is, again, we want to make sure we're taking care of the motoring public, and we want to make sure we're taking care of our customers' freight. So safety is at the utmost importance in our minds. But just like you or I, if we were going to take the family on vacation, if you've rested well, you can drive 12 hours. So can smaller vehicles. They also travel at the same highway speeds that you and I travel. So just naturally, they cover more ground because typically the highway speeds are going to be slightly higher than the truck speeds. So in general, we can cover more ground and deliver things quicker. Again, not unsafely because we hold our drivers' feet to the fire there, but there is some flexibility there with how long they can be in the seats, as long as they're well rested. And again, the speeds that they can travel are much faster than what the truck speeds are on the highways.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I live not too far from a Tractor Supply, and when I go for a walk, every once in a while I'll talk to a driver who's sitting around waiting, and they're always waiting to get their hours of service back. And so I'm here in Michigan, and the guy I'll say, "You waiting for your hours?" And they're like, "Yep." And he goes, "I can leave in 2 hours." And I go, "Where do you live?" "Oh, just in Toledo, just an hour away." And I'm thinking that. I know the hours of service and all what we're talking about here is for safety, but I'm not so sure. And by the way, I wouldn't give my opinion unless it was from people who had a real knowledge. The hours of service is sometimes a real challenge, not necessarily making anybody safer. And again, I want flexibility. If I'm giving you the ability to drive a truck for me, I want you to have the flexibility to be an adult. And if you say, I shouldn't be tired, but I am, I'm going to get out and I'm going to rest, or whatever. I don't want you locked into an arbitrary hour. It does make sense to me.
And, Joe, I think the hours of service, it does help. But to our conversation earlier, really, it's about the utilization of those hours and utilizing them properly. So you think about big trucks, if they're sitting there waiting, that clock's ticking. They only get 70 hours in 8 days, or they have to at minimum have a 34-hour reset before they can start those hours. So there's a lot of inefficiencies that you find a lot of times that cause some pain. In our world, if a driver's down, he can go ahead and go rest until the next load comes available. There's a little more flexibility, but again, I don't want to say anything negative about the hours of service because they have a place and they're valuable.
You can't, but I will. No, safety first.
I think it's the right thing. I just think that those that are managing the drivers under those hours of service, they could probably in many cases do a better job to use those for something productive and then get the driver home so they can get their rest.
Mike, we do such a bad job. We optimize around when the docks are open. And sometimes I think we should optimize around the driver's time, because the guy sometimes says, "Oh, I've got in a traffic jam and now I'm an hour from where I was going to deliver and I can't deliver and now I missed my next load." This is one of the challenges with our business is we make the driver's life difficult. So if you don't mind, Mike, walk me through like a case study where you guys are a good fit. And I know we talked a little bit before we hit the record button that you work with some food companies, and I'm assuming as some of it's shelf stable and some of it is cold chain. Why don't you walk me through just a few case studies of what you guys do?
Sure. So let's talk about a recent example. We've partnered up with a manufacturer of ice cream. They were having difficulties trying to make all the deliveries before the store opened with their own equipment. They had inefficiencies as far as being able to manage the equipment fleet themselves, some inefficiencies as far as how to maintain the temperatures and then coordinate all those replenishments that have to happen at minimum twice a week. We went in and talked to them about our temperature controlled solutions and what we could do to set up basically routes to fulfill those needs every week. And it's multiple locations that have to be replenished twice a week. But we've gone ahead and set up a program with them where we go and pick up all the replenishment for the number of stores we have to deliver for the day. We actually go in and have access to the stores. Our drivers will go in and go ahead and stock the shelves for them and remove anything that may have been spoiled or they want to get rid of, and then rinse and repeat twice a week for each store before 10 o'clock in the morning when they open. So it's a great example of you had a manufacturer that felt they had an internal solution, something we could bring to them as a better, more cost-effective solution, and let us be the logistics side of the business. You continue to do the ice cream side, which you're very good at. It's pretty tasty ice cream.
So when you're delivering that, like you said they're delivering to a store twice a week. When they load up the vehicle, how many stores are they hitting?
We're doing anywhere between 3 and 5. Just depends on the proximity from where we're going to pick up the product and where we're going to deliver it. But just a few stores at a time. But again, it's really the regularity, the consistency, the temperature control, and executing before they open up. Nobody wants to see ice cream being delivered while somebody's trying to order ice cream at the counter, right? So, getting everything coordinated within about a 3-hour window every morning is really the problem they were trying to solve that they couldn't solve themselves. And we came in and helped them out. If you talk about high value stuff, Joe, we've got another partner of ours that it's computer equipment, it's financial information, it's stuff you don't want getting out. We walked in and helped them develop an SOP from cradle to grave that, anything from chain of custody, pictures, taping up the boxes, all corners to make sure the security tape was there, pictured before the trailer was closed and sealed. And then validated at destination when it was delivered. So you name it. We've had a number of case studies. We love going in and helping people solve problems, whether it be a temperature control problem, a security problem, a time sensitive, a speed problem, or, again, just those damage issues or that high value stuff that you really don't want to go through, other modes that could have multiple touches.
Yeah, the one of the challenges you mentioned there is temperature controlled LTL, and I've done some of that. It seems like it's not always available in every lane you want. But what always concerned me about it is the nature of LTL. You don't know how many loads you're going to have for that area, and then you don't know. What if I'm the 10th thing that gets off the truck and they're opening it and it's getting hot here in the Midwest and it's always hot down south in Florida this time of year. As they start to open that door, if I needed to be temperature controlled, I don't know how I could even keep it temperature controlled. But there's another aspect of it is as a food, and again, this isn't just food, but it's for sure food. You have to be able to say there's no ability for pests to get into it. There's no ability for a crazy person to try and tamper with it. And if I got to open that truck 10 times during the day, I'm at risk. I can't in good conscience go back and say I am doing my job if I'm using something that, again, it could change. It could be good 100 times, and the 101st time it doesn't work for whatever reason. That's not a good process.
Well, and even the fact that you don't want to mix some food items because of the smells that can, move over. So again, I never want to knock another mode. I mean, refrigerated LTL has its purpose. There's probably some good fits, but it's not a fit for all. And again, that's where we can help people out.
Well, we definitely needed this innovation. And again, I think that I said it before, the innovation is between the boulders. LTL and Truckload are the big boulders in our space. And we've always had Expedite, but we never been using Expedite like you guys are until the last, I don't know, couple of years, 5, 10. I'd say during COVID is when it really kind of grew up. Am I right to say that?
It's really where it kind of took off. But again, we talked a little bit earlier about some of the shift, the Amazon effect, the shorter lead times, suppliers being closer to the end user, and then even that, leaner inventory. But, if you think about Expedite in general, it started back, in the late 90s, mid 90s with just-in-time inventory in the automotive. That's really the infancy stages of true expediting on a regular basis, because they were looking at the same thing. How can I reduce my inventories, but get it there in time that I don't shut down a line, don't shut down a plant? Now, fast forward, we found a number of different applications that fit well, from right sizing the shipment sizes to all the different, problems we solve with, damages, high value, time sensitive, proprietary information, you name it. It's just grown. People are really starting to see the advantages versus some of the other modes out there. Rail has its own purpose, LTL, full truckload. So does what we've coined STL, small truckload, because it's right sizing for the need and fitting the proper solution to help solve you or your customers' problem.
A lot of companies now also are saying, we all have our KPIs. I think, I always used to say, I want some sort of on-time performance. I want to know some sort of cost performance. How are we doing on damage? I always like to track with LTL billing accuracy because it could be off. And I think a lot of companies are now adding, especially big companies, are adding sustainability. How are we doing on emissions? And if I am delivering 1 or 2 pallets with a 53-foot truck because I needed reefer, I'm hurting myself on my emissions numbers. And again, I think you're not going to work with big companies now without them saying, how are we doing on that? And I always say, just add a KPI. It's not a good one yet. We're a little rough on it's directionally correct is all you can get it to. But an easy way to say it is we used a big truck instead of a small truck. Well, that's going to be a ding, right? If right now I said, look, across the nation, I'm going to start using the right size vehicle, which might be one of the smaller vehicles we discussed, rather than a 53-foot, I've saved gas, first and foremost. I've saved gas, I've saved cost, and last but not least is sustainability. So please talk about that.
Yeah, so I don't have the stats in front of me, but common sense tells you there's a huge improvement to right sizing the vehicle when it comes to sustainability, your carbon footprint, emission, all of those good things. So I can't speak to the numbers, Joe, but it's definitely something people ask about. It's definitely, numbers that we can provide to help them. My old employer, we had a whole department that was those type of things, right? So it's on everybody's mind. We want to make sure we're doing the right thing for everybody.
Yeah, I think I always say the Walmarts of the world, those companies are all looking. They're looking. How do we get greener and cleaner? And I always say, like, there's KPIs. Sometimes they're very rough, and I always say, just start. Just start. You could start this easily with to say, what is the average emissions for a vehicle like yours versus an average vehicle for 53-footer, and say it's directionally correct. I'm just going to use that, and I guarantee it's a nice cost savings. It's probably a lot more efficient. You're probably better on time performance because you got a smaller truck. You don't have to. A 53-foot truck going through traffic isn't easy, especially once you get to the surface streets, and then you're going to be much better on the emissions. So this is just all around a better fit right now for a lot of companies. I have a buddy, and I told you about him before we hit the record button. He started a new brokerage in the last year, done really well. And I remember before he started, he kept saying to me, what would make my business more competitive? And I introduced him to you guys because I said, what makes more competitive is having more options. And I think this is an option that its time has come. Yeah, I love what you guys are doing. Anyway, enough of my blather. I'm going to try the best I can to summarize what we talked about. Then I'm going to get your final thoughts on the topic. So again, I'm talking to my friend Mike Ernst, and we're talking about beyond LTL and truckload, the Expedite All approach to smaller truck solutions. So the problem is LTL isn't always the right fit. Neither Mike nor I will criticize LTL because it is great for many options, many applications. It's the right fit, but a lot of times as we're trying to get inventory closer to the consumers because they want same day, next day, we would use a lot of LTL solutions, but it's not a good fit for everything. The handling sometimes bothers people because of excess handling means potentially more loss, more damage. The timing isn't necessarily guaranteed. Excuse me. It is not guaranteed. It's directionally correct. And usually they're pretty good, but pretty good isn't good enough sometimes. So we need better than potentially tomorrow. I need a lot of times the docks want to know we got people on the dock from 3 to 5. You got to get here from 3 to 5. LTL can't always guarantee that unless you want to pay an extra fee. Truckload is sometimes too big. It's direct. It's safe. It's one thing, but I might have 2 pallets. I don't want to move on a big truck. So this small truck solution that we're talking about is the fastest, most secure way to move, to use your point, an envelope to 14 pallets. And if it's electronics, if it's food, if it's something that cannot be stacked upon, if it's something that you're afraid might get stolen or damaged on a traditional LTL or truck, this is definitely the right solution. Anyway, enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one. Final thoughts on the topic, Mike Ernst.
Sure, Joe, and thank you. So I guess the way I would wrap it up, so for anybody looking for something that isn't the right fit in LTL or isn't the right fit for FTL, whether it be the damage concerns, whether it be the high value of the freight, whether it be the time sensitivity, or whether it be the shipment size, give us a call. We are North America's largest provider of small vehicle solutions, what we have coined as STL, small truckload. You're going to get a dedicated door-to-door service, a no-touch solution. Our service offering, and we measure by the minute, both on the pickup and the delivery side. The worst on-time performance that I've seen in 2 years is 99.28% on time. So feel pretty good that we can service that freight and do what we say we can do. Again, as we spoke earlier, Joe, we cover all of North America. So we can do the cross-border in and out of Canada, cross-border in and out of Mexico. We can do intra-Mexico moves as well as the lower 48. So if anybody's interested in further discussing, if there's something we can help with, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect. I'll have one of our team circle back and we can talk through the service offerings, the tech stack, the access to the on-demand capacity, and even the track and trace, the GPS we have on every vehicle. We'd love to talk to you and see if we can help provide solutions for you and your customers. That's what we're here to do. We're a transportation provider. We pick up and deliver freight. Feel we do it better than anybody in the industry, and we've got 10,000 vehicles we can offer. So would love to talk to anybody that finds a need for that space. If they need help with their customers, let us know.
I love it. Mike, I will make sure I put a link to your website, your LinkedIn profile, and any other links that you and your go-to-market team give me. I'll put those in the show notes so people can reach out and talk to you. So if somebody calls you, how quick till you can get them, start working with them? Is it just like a regular trucking company? So I call today and you can work with me today?
If everything checks out, Joe, we can do it in a day. I mean, we'd set up an account, make sure all the boxes were checked, payment terms, things like that. We're pretty quick. But I would suspect if you reach out within 24 hours, we could have a conversation. If it works, we could help set up an account.
I love it. So what conferences will we see you and the fine folks from Expedite All at?
So we tend to go to a lot of them. We like to make new friends and find new partners. So the ones that are coming up here soon, let me pull up my conference schedule. We'll be at SMC3 Connections, June 23rd through the 25th. We'll be at the TIA 3PL Policy Forum. That's the one held out in Washington, D.C. In September. September 23rd through the 25th, we'll be at the Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Global Summit. Actually, your neck of the woods there, Joe, in Plymouth, Michigan.
Oh, really? I might get to that one.
The 29th of September through October 1st, we'll be at the JOC Inland Distribution in Chicago. You want me to keep going? I got six more, Joe.
We'll just say it this way: if you go to a conference, there's a very good chance you're going to see these guys. And
there's a probability.
I met Alex and Katerina at CSCMP Edge last year, and I know that's on your list.
We'll be back there again in October. So
I think it's in Maryland this year.
Yeah, National Harbor, Maryland.
Yep. But yeah, that's where I got my first demo of what you guys do, and I was like, oh, I like it. Anyway, enough of my pontificating. I love what you guys are doing. I think this is such an important thing. And I think for anybody who's a broker listening right now, these are not the best of times. And I think this is where you have to dig in and find better solutions. And if you want to be differentiating yourself from the other players, I think this kind of solution is a nice thing to have in your back pocket, because everybody's bringing, oh, we can get cheaper. But I think sometimes you got to go and say, how about better and cheaper? and I think it's just alternatives. I think everywhere we look in our world, we have alternatives. And for a long time, we've had LTL or truckload. Great modes, but not perfect for everything.
Yeah, Joe, I couldn't agree more. And it's an evolving space for all the things we've talked about. One last, I guess, point that I'll make as we wrap up. The data really tells us that in the next 1 to 3 years, this space is going to grow by probably about fourfold. So right now, we would conservatively estimate there's about 50 to 60,000 shipments that fall within our space on a given day. We feel like probably 3 to 4 years from now, worst case scenario, it's probably going to be closer to 200,000. We actually have plans to get our vehicle count up to 20,000 no later than 2025. So if that tells anybody listening to this podcast about what we feel the market is doing with all the things Joe and I talked about today, there's further questions. We'd love to have some conversation with you, help you understand the space and help you understand how to leverage these smaller vehicle solutions to better meet your customers' needs. So, Joe, before we end, I do want to thank you for the opportunity. I thank you and Logistics of Logistics for having us on today, for having me on today. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.